Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, abridged version. Specific articles relating to the rights of women with disabilities, to non-discrimination and right to work and employment. This video is produced as part of a collaborative regional project funded by European Union to strengthen the implementation of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in Kenya and Uganda. Preamble. The states parties to the present convention: A. Recalling the principles proclaimed in the Charter of the United Nations, which recognize the inherent dignity and worth and the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family as the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. B. Recognizing that the United Nations in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and in the International Covenants on Human Rights has proclaimed and agreed that everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth therein without discrimination of any kind. C. Reaffirming the universality, indivisibility, interdependence, and interrelatedness of all human rights and fundamental freedoms, and the need for persons with disabilities to be guaranteed their full enjoyment without discrimination. D. Recalling the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, the Convention Against Torture and other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment, the Convention on the Rights of the Child, and the International Convention on the Protection of the Rights of all migrant workers and members of the family. E. Recognizing that disability is an evolving concept and that disability results from the interaction between persons with impairments and attitudinal and environmental barriers that hinders their full and effective participation in society on an equal basis with others. F. Recognizing the importance of the principles and policy guidelines contained in the World Programme of Action concerning disabled persons and in the standard rules on the equalization of opportunities for persons with disabilities in influencing the promotion, formulation, and evaluation of the policies, plans, and programs and actions at the national, regional, and international levels to further equalize opportunities for persons with disabilities. G. Emphasizing the importance of mainstreaming disability issues as an integral part of relevant strategies of sustainable development. H. Recognizing also that discrimination against any person on the basis of disability is a violation of the inherent dignity and worth of the human person. I. Recognizing further the diversity of persons with disabilities. J. Recognizing the need to promote and protect the human rights of all persons with disabilities, including those who require more intensive support. K. Concerned that, despite these various instruments and undertakings, persons with disabilities continue to face barriers in their participation as equal members of society and violations of their human rights in all parts of the world. L. recognizing the importance of international cooperation for improving the living conditions of persons with disabilities in every country, particularly in developing countries. M. Recognizing the valued existing and potential contributions made by persons with disabilities to the overall well-being and diversity of their communities, and that the promotion of the full enjoyment by persons with disabilities of their human rights and fundamental freedoms and of full participation by persons with disabilities will result in their enhanced sense of belonging and in significant advances in the human, social, and economic development of society and the eradication of poverty. N. Recognizing the importance for persons with disabilities of their individual autonomy and independence, including the freedom to make their own choices. O. Considering that persons with disabilities should have the opportunity to be actively involved in decision-making processes about policies and programs, including those directly concerning them. P. Concerned about the difficult conditions faced by persons with disabilities who are subject to multiple or aggravated forms of discrimination on the basis of race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national, ethnic, indigenous, or social origin, property, birth, age, or other status. Q. Recognizing that women and girls with disabilities are often at greater risk, both within and outside the home, of violence, injury, or abuse, neglect, or negligent treatment, maltreatment, or exploitation. R. Recognizing that children with disabilities should have full enjoyment of all human rights and fundamental freedoms on an equal basis with other children, and recalling obligations to that end undertaken by states parties to the Convention on the Rights of the Child. S. Emphasizing the need to incorporate a gender perspective in all efforts to promote the full enjoyment of human rights and fundamental freedoms by persons with disabilities. T. Highlighting the fact that the majority of persons with disabilities live in conditions of poverty, and in this regard, recognizing the critical need to address the negative impact of poverty on persons with disabilities. U. Bearing in mind that conditions of peace and security based on full respect for the purposes and principles contained in the Charter of the United Nations and observance of applicable human rights instruments are indispensable for the full protection of persons with disabilities, in particular during armed conflicts and foreign occupation. V. Recognizing the importance of accessibility to the physical, social, economic, and cultural environment, to health and education, and to information and communication, in enabling persons with disabilities to fully enjoy all human rights and fundamental freedoms. W. Realizing that the individual having duties to other individuals and to the community to which he or she belongs is under a responsibility to strive for the promotion and observance of the rights recognized in the International Bill of Human Rights. X. Convinced that the family is the natural and fundamental group unit of society and is entitled to protection by society and the state, and that persons with disabilities and their family members should receive the necessary protection and assistance to enable families to contribute towards the full and equal enjoyment of the rights of persons with disabilities. Why? Convinced that a comprehensive and integral international convention to promote and protect the rights and dignity of persons with disabilities will make a significant contribution to redressing the profound social disadvantage of persons with disabilities and promote their participation in the civil, political, economic, social, and cultural spheres with equal opportunities in both developing and developed countries have agreed as follows. Article 6. Women with disabilities. 1. States parties recognize that women and girls with disabilities are subject to multiple discrimination, and in this regard shall take measures to ensure the full and equal enjoyment by them of all human rights and fundamental freedoms. 2. States parties shall take all appropriate measures to ensure the full development, advancement, and empowerment of women for the purpose of guaranteeing them the exercise and enjoyment of the human rights and fundamental freedoms set out in the present Convention. Article 27. Work and employment. 1. States parties recognize the right of persons with disabilities to work on an equal basis with others. This includes the right to the opportunity to gain a living by work freely chosen or accepted in a labor market and work environment that is open, inclusive, and accessible to persons with disabilities. States parties shall safeguard and promote the realization of the right to work, including for those who acquire a disability during the course of employment, by taking appropriate steps, including through legislation to inter alia, A. Prohibit discrimination on the basis of disability with regard to all matters concerning all forms of employment, including conditions or recruitment, hiring and employment, continuance of employment, career advancement, and safe and healthy working conditions. B. Protect the rights of persons with disabilities on an equal basis with others to just and favorable conditions of work, including equal opportunities and equal remuneration for work of equal value, safe and healthy working conditions, including protection from harassment and the redress of grievances. C. Ensure that persons with disabilities are able to exercise their labor and trade union rights on an equal basis with others. D. Enable persons with disabilities to have effective access to general technical and vocational guidance programs, placement services, and vocational and continuing training. E. Promote employment opportunities and career advancement for persons with disabilities in the labor market, as well as assistance in finding, obtaining, maintaining, and returning to employment. F. Promote opportunities for self-employment, entrepreneurship, the development of cooperatives, and starting one's own business. G. Employ persons with disabilities in the public sector. H. promote the employment of persons with disabilities in the private sector through appropriate policies and measures which may include affirmative action, programs, incentives, and other measures. I. Ensure that reasonable accommodation is provided to persons with disabilities in the workplace. J. Promote the acquisition by persons with disabilities of work experience in the open labor market. K. Promote vocational and professional rehabilitation, job retention, and return to work programs for persons with disabilities. 2. States parties shall ensure that persons with disabilities are not held in slavery or in servitude and are protected on an equal basis with others from forced or compulsory labor. This project is funded by the European Union and implemented by Site Enterprise Promotion, Kenya Union of the Blind, Action on Poverty, and the National Union of Women with Disabilities of Uganda.